Disturbing discovery. New developments in the shortage of baby formula in the United States. How one lawmaker is responding. A nation mourns. President Joe Biden and church leaders are speaking out following the deadly shootings in New York and California. Global greetings. Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI responds after receiving several thousand birthday messages. And Marian devotion. A closer look at why the month of May is dedicated to the Blessed Virgin. On EWTN News Nightly for Tuesday, May 17th, 2022. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm Tracy Sable. A judge has suspended the ban on abortion in Michigan. The 1931 law makes it a crime to assist in an abortion, but has had no effect since 1973. The preliminary ruling was sought by Planned Parenthood as abortion businesses prepare for the possible overturning of Roe v. Wade and the return of abortion laws to state legislatures. Meantime, as we have been reporting, there is a baby formula shortage here in the United States. It has resulted in empty store shelves and both fear and frustration from parents. But one lawmaker says she has proof that there are stockpiles of formula on the southern border and is blaming the problem on President Joe Biden.
My intent in highlighting and exposing this was not to say we shouldn't take care of these children. It's that this Biden administration has created a crisis.
Last week, Congresswoman Kat Cammack received a text message from frustrated Border Patrol agents telling her baby formula was being stockpiled in warehouses along the southern border. When White House officials pushed back, the pro-life lawmaker went to the border to find out for herself. She tells EWTN News Nightly that she went inside the Donna, Texas Border Patrol Processing Center.
This supply room is stocked from top to bottom with supplies, from formula to diapers, clothing, flip-flops, anything and everything you could imagine.
But that's not all. She then toured two off-site warehouses
that are extraordinarily large and stocked full with more supplies, and they have more en route, they confirmed.
In February, the FDA closed the country's largest baby formula plant, Abbott Nutrition, because of safety issues. Congresswoman Cammack tells EWTN News Nightly that led to a self-inflicted problem.
This Biden administration has created a crisis by shutting down the nation's largest manufacturing plant, manufacturer of baby formula, without a plan to backfill the 43% that they make up in the marketplace. To me, that is irresponsible. That is an America Last policy.
As Title 42 expires next week, public health officials expect more than 12,000 migrants a day to cross the border. And officials add the baby formula is being stockpiled to meet that need. Today, the White House released a video saying the Food and Drug Administration will oversee the importing of baby formula from countries around the world. And joining us now for further analysis is Bob Nugent, research fellow at the Bush School of Business at the Catholic University of America. Thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. Let's talk a little bit more about this baby formula shortage. It really is a matter of life or death for some parents and their babies, as it's something they really can't go without. That said, how do you think something like this happened here in the United States of all places? And do you think it could have been avoided?
Well, there's a couple of factors. First of all, thanks for having me. And there are a couple of factors I think at work here. One is baby formula as a relatively low margin product. And so the concentration of the industry into only several firms providing production is one contribution. The other is some tariff barriers and administrative barriers that have prevented other firms, international firms, which are now jumping in, from actually participating in the market. So this concentration, and I think a disconnect across branches of government. The FDA is involved, the Commerce Department's involved. There's a lot of other agencies involved, and as particularly we've seen in the last couple of years of supply chain issues related to many things like COVID and what have you, we're discovering that that supply chain is made up of many links, and some of those links can be very, very vulnerable in specific events like the closure of the factory in Michigan, can lead to nationwide issues. So I come from a naval background, and the business of planning for strategic surprise to avoid strategic surprise is something that I think could be put more in play here to avoid these sorts of surprises in the future.
Yeah, Bob, we've been hearing, the Abbott plant's going to be up and running pretty soon. But, even once it is, it'll take, at least a few weeks, possibly even months before store shelves are fully stocked again with the formula. Can you explain to us, why this seems like such a long process to get it from the manufacturer to the store? And also, is there a way around that to sort of expedite the process?
Well, interestingly enough, I mean, we've been following the news. I'm sure you've been following the news about shortages of trucking, shortages of transport. All of those are involved in this nationwide scheme. We have been the envy of the world in our ability to do logistics, but issues like shortage of drivers, shortage of transport, increasing costs of fuel and transportation all play into the issue of moving goods from where they're produced to where they're needed. And in terms of government action that might be taken to alleviate it, I think there's some short-term things that might be taken, but fundamentally, the concentration of the oversized role this plant plays in production means that it's going to limit our ability, government and producers and people in the commercial sector, from actually moving. You can't move it faster than the roads and the capacity can take you, and so. The supply chain is made up of many links, some of which are more vulnerable and less flexible than others. And so I think that's part of the reason why we'll see this time lag between production and arrival on the shelves.
Can we talk about the vulnerability of our nation's supply chain and also how that relates to our national security?
Very much so. I mean, this isn't the first, and it isn't going to be the last. We have had an underinvestment in many critical parts of our national infrastructure for years. Energy, electric grid, I can go on and on, railroads, highways, and roads. So in the sense that because we have underinvested, and we've underinvested in capacity, and we've created barriers to more competition in the industry, those have, I think, both combined to create several bottlenecks. And these bottlenecks are concerning. I'm a father of 7. I can just imagine the frustration of families trying to feed their children. And then you pile on top of that inflation and the fact that you have to drive further and farther to find the formula, and it costs more to do so. So there's a sort of a cascading chain of events, and that's one of the lessons of supply chain management is a single link breaking can really disrupt the entire system. And I think you're seeing that happen here.
Yeah, and you mentioned inflation, and as you know, it's a huge concern for everyone right now. And now there are also growing concerns that the U.S. could be heading towards a period of stagflation. That's something that the former Fed chair, Ben Bernanke, actually recently mentioned. That said, for those who may not know, can you explain to us what exactly stagflation is and also how it impacts us in our own pocketbooks?
Well, I'm dating myself now, but it's been 40 years since the nation's experienced this combination of both inflation and low growth, which is what stagflation adds up to. And there's a variety of factors contributing to it: stimulus, overstimulus, if you will, of the economy, shortfalls in supply chain resulting from some COVID disruptions. All of those add up to this puzzle, this unpleasant puzzle we're looking at trying to solve now. I think, quite frankly, nobody really knows just where we are. And I think that's why you're seeing the market react the way it is, why government officials are reacting the way it is, because it's been so long since we've encountered this set of circumstances that have come together. And so I would give it a bit of time for it to shake out. But the market, I think, is clearly communicating that it expects high inflation over at least the next couple or 3 years. And all of that's going to factor into decisions that companies make about where to invest and how to fund. As far as your question about what could we do about it, well, there are strategic stockpiles of some critical components, oil, semiconductors, and I'm loath to say that we ought to invest in a national stockpile of baby formula. On the other hand, we can certainly remove the barriers to allowing the market to work at its best, and both administrative and competitive barriers, I think, are at work here. And at least the news is indicating that might be lightening up a bit, but it's a long-term concern that we need to be addressing.
Well, Bob, we appreciate you coming on. Thank you so much for your analysis.
Absolutely. I appreciate it. Thanks for the chance.
President Joe Biden and First Lady Jill Biden flew to Buffalo, New York today as that community mourns the victims of a mass shooting, which the president called domestic terrorism. In a speech this afternoon, the president urged Americans to defeat racism and promised evil will not win and hate will not prevail. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports.
President Joe Biden is just the latest U.S. president to travel to the scene of a horrific mass shooting, this time Buffalo, New York. And in a speech this afternoon, he called on people of all races and backgrounds to speak up and, in his words, reject white supremacy.
The president and first lady visit a memorial outside the supermarket where a gunman targeted black people on Saturday. And speaking at a nearby community center, the president choked up as he remembered the lives lost, including one father.
Went to buy his 3-year-old son a birthday cake. His son's selling a birthday. Ask him, where's daddy?
President Biden also met privately with families of the shooting victims and first responders. He said none of us can stay on the sidelines and urged Americans to take on the haters.
We have to refuse to live in a country where black people going about a weekly grocery shopping can be gunned down by weapons of war deployed in a racist cause.
Earlier, Buffalo Mayor Byron Brown said hate is being spread across America on the internet and the airwaves and needs to be reined in.
Ways that Americans are being radicalized in ways of hate and hate speech and hateful theories, false information, false theories.
One member of the Buffalo City Council said his community is hurting.
And we have our government and our elected officials and FBI and everyone else here to protect us, but we weren't protected on that day.
Rashid Wyatt believes what happened could have been averted, that signals were missed, and he says this is the fallout of it.
As I look and hear about the families and how they've been affected, and hear about the children that lost a grandmother, an uncle, a cousin, it really grieves my heart.
President Biden also said in his speech today, quote, "We have to refuse to live in a country where fear and lies are packaged for power and for profit." He called the U.S. the most multiracial and most dynamic nation in the history of the world. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Well, in the wake of the deadly shootings in the United States, U.S. bishops appeal for a Christ-rooted, honest dialogue about the evil of racism. In a statement, the USCCB writes, quote, "The Catholic Church has been a consistent voice for rational yet effective forms of regulation on dangerous weapons, and the USCCB continues to advocate for an end to violence and for the respect and dignity of all lives." Florida's governor has signed a bill banning protests in front of private homes. Those found guilty could face jail time and fines if they ignore orders to disperse. Republican Ron DeSantis says the law stems from protest by abortion supporters outside of the homes of some U.S. Supreme Court justices. The new law takes effect October 1st. Coming up, tracking the latest developments involving NATO and international security. Spain has approved a draft bill that would extend abortion access to teenagers. The proposal would end the existing requirement for minors to obtain parental consent to end a pregnancy. The bill also includes other proposed government benefits which address women's health. Germany's interior minister has officially raised the rainbow flag in front of a government building today, symbolic of same-sex and so-called gender advocacy. Today was selected to coincide with an international day of protest. The decision to display the flag on specific occasions was announced a month ago. Sweden and Finland are moving towards joining NATO despite objections from Turkey. Finland's president and Sweden's prime minister held a joint press conference today to announce intentions to pursue their formal application tomorrow. Each country wants to work with Turkey to attain NATO membership. Turkey's president criticizes their alleged support for opposition Kurdish forces in northern Syria. Representatives from all three countries are scheduled to meet with U.S. leaders for talks over the next 2 days. Meanwhile, Vladimir Putin warns any Nordic military expansion could trigger a Russian response. And joining us now to discuss is Claire Lopez, founder and president of Lopez Liberty, LLC. Claire, welcome back. Always great to see you. Let's talk about why Sweden and Finland want to join NATO and why now, and also why is Turkey opposed to it?
Well, obviously, Finland and Sweden are looking at what's happening in Ukraine. And note as well that other Nordic countries, Norway, Denmark, already are members of NATO. Until now, Sweden and Finland had not been, but they are much more alarmed now at what they see as Russian aggression and willingness to use brutal force against a European nation like Ukraine. And so it's pretty clear why they want to join NATO for that NATO treaty group protection of Article 5.
Yeah, and as far as the situation right now in Ukraine, talk to us about what just happened in Mariupol with the evacuation of troops from the steel plant and what this all signals.
Yeah, so these heroic defenders, the Azov Brigade, yes, Nazi affiliations or sympathies, but in any case, these were the defenders of Mariupol, held out for 2.5 months of fighting at this giant steel facility, steel plant there in Mariupol. Finally, with hundreds of injured and I don't know how many dead, they got orders from Kiev, from the capital, to finally lay down their arms, and they have been evacuated to a Russian-controlled area of the Donbass, and that fight there is over. Mariupol, for all intents and purposes, is in Russian hands, a very significant position on the Sea of Azov in the south of Ukraine, and now, of course, the Russians looking further to the west to begin shelling Odessa, which lies on the Black Sea, with the intent, it looks like, of cutting Ukraine off from the sea, making it landlocked. And oh, by the way, also, this would mean very serious consequences for world food supply, as shipping ports there would be closed, already are closed, and the grain crops and other crops from Ukraine cannot get out.
This is all very concerning, and something else very concerning as well. U.S. intelligence officials warned the Senate Armed Services Committee last week that China is working hard towards a military takeover of Taiwan. Talk to us about that, Claire, and how concerned are you about this?
Well, very concerned, as we all should be, because we just got a report. It's at the Gateway Pundit. Today, as a matter of fact, May 16, 2022. I'm sorry, today's the 17th, so that would have been yesterday, May 16, 2022. Audio reportedly has been leaked out of a high-level Chinese military meeting discussing preparations for the invasion of Taiwan and the defeat of regional U.S. forces in the Far East. This was the PLA's, People Liberation Army, Guangdong military region, officers who met at the Central Military Commission of the State Council. They met in Beijing, actually, and discussed plans for preparation for an invasion of Taiwan. They're going to try to build up a military-civilian joint mobilization command and control system. They were talking about establishing wartime procedures and preparing for wartime command and control at that reported meeting in Beijing during this past week.
Well, Claire, so much more we can talk about. Unfortunately, we're out of time. But as always, thank you so much for your analysis. We always appreciate it.
Thank you.
Up next, advice on how to get closer to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Pope Emeritus Benedict XVI says the birthday wishes he received made him, quote, very happy. Pope Benedict received around 3,000 birthday greetings on his official website. The retired Pope turned 95 last month. His birthday this year coincided with Holy Saturday, as it did on April 16, 1927, when he was born in Bavaria near Austria. Finally tonight, the Vatican continues its busy schedule, highlighting the dedication of the month of May to the Blessed Virgin Mary. Twice a week this month, a prayer and procession dedicated to Our Lady takes place in the Vatican Basilica. Honoring the Blessed Virgin, the month of May is a practice that dates from the 16th century, when St. Philip Neri taught young men to place flowers at images of the Mother of God. Joining us now from Rome is Father Joseph Roche, Vicar General of the Marians of the Immaculate Conception. Father, thank you so much for your time today. We appreciate it. If you don't mind, can you tell us a little bit more about why the Catholic Church dedicates the month of May to the Blessed Virgin?
Well, it goes back centuries. It goes back to ancient Rome and the ancient Greeks. They had spring festivals to goddesses of fertility and of flowers. And then the church began to take some of those traditions over and dedicate time to Mary and processions to Mary and devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. There was also a month that was dedicated to Mary, which usually took place in September throughout the history of the church. And it was really in the 1900s, the 19th century, really the 1800s, that things really began to coalesce. And it's what we know now, May processions, crowning the Blessed Mother, a statue of the Blessed Mother, praying the Rosary. These kind of traditions really coalesced in the 1800s.
And that's so interesting. And also, can you tell us maybe about the ways that your community celebrates the Blessed Virgin in May?
Well, we're an international community, so we have some men working in Fatima. There was just a huge crowd on May 13th in Fatima, and we have a hotel there, so we were very happy that the pilgrims have come back. We have men who hear confessions there. We're in Poland. We have one of the largest Marian shrines next to Częstochowa. It's called Our Lady of Lihen, and there's great devotion to Mary there. Many pilgrims coming there. Many during May, they have something called the Marian Appeal, which is sort of like an evening prayer dedicated to Mary. Of course, the Rosary is very popular. There are processions there. In the United States, we have the Shrine of the Divine Mercy, and of course, there are devotions to Mary. Each day we're very dedicated to Mary. The Marians, we ourselves pray the Rosary each day. That's part of our tradition. And then in Africa, we have right near the shrine of Our Lady of Kibeho in Rwanda, we have a beautiful Marian Formation Center with a large statue of the Divine Mercy. And of course, Marian devotion is very popular there. So throughout the world, we are sons of Mary, and we try to bring her devotion to the faithful.
That's wonderful. And speaking of devotions, do you have maybe any advice for the faithful on Marian devotions that, they can do that might be helpful for the rest of the month?
Well, we in our houses, in our religious houses, we usually pray the Litany of Loretto, and there's some beautiful new invocations that Pope Francis has included, including the person, Mary, as the one who gives solace to the migrants and the Mother of Mercy. So each day we pray that litany. Of course, as I said, part of our tradition is the Rosary. So we pray the Rosary every day, and that's something that if families can pray the Rosary together, it's a beautiful way of bringing families together. As Father Patrick Peyton used to say, the family that prays together stays together. And so the Rosary and litanies and the Angelus is a beautiful prayer that we pray in morning, noon, and evening. So it's all ways of bringing our lives closer to Mary, and Mary is our mother. Jesus gave her to us from the cross. And she takes care of us. She takes care of her children, so she'll look out for us. So I would just say, pray the Hail Mary each day, at least.
And Father Joe, before I let you go, we have just a little bit of time left, but I'm wondering, anything else that you would like to share with us about this month?
Well, I can remember when I was a seminarian participating in May processions and the little May Queens crowning the Blessed Mother. And May is a month that usually takes place during the Easter season, and so very often there's First Communions at that time. And so I think it's so important that we inculcate Marian devotion in the children from the beginning, because they need the formation. They need that understanding that Mary is our mother and Mary will lead us to Jesus. And so whatever we can do to keep these traditions going for the children in our lives and in our families, I think the Blessed Mother will be very happy.
Yeah, very well said. Thank you so much, Father Joe. We appreciate it. God bless you. And we thank you for watching tonight. For the entire EWTN News Nightly team, I'm Tracy Sable. Good night and God bless.